Painkillers, blood thinners, and chemotherapy drugs are just some of the substances that are found in your drinking water. There's new information that some drugs are ending up in our water at levels never seen before. CBC's Kelly Crow has more on that.
There's something happening to the rainbow darter, a tiny fish that lives in the rivers of southern Ontario. If they're downstream from a sewage treatment plant, the male fish turn into females.
If you expose them to wastewater, they will feminize. They will have eggs in the testes.
What's causing the males to develop eggs? Human hormones, residue from prescription drugs that are flushed into the river. Using new, highly sensitive equipment, scientists are finding an increasing variety of prescription drugs in the waterways. Painkillers, blood thinners, chemotherapy agents, hormones, antibiotics. If we swallow it, scientists can find it in the water.
Some of the drug comes in us and through us and out of us totally unchanged. So we actually have active drugs going into the waterway through our urine or feces.
Last month, a study of First Nations communities found levels of 3 prescription drugs in one southern Ontario river that were the highest in North America. And an unpublished Health Canada survey of tap water across the country found traces of prescription drugs in drinking water. Mark Servos is the lead author.
There are pharmaceuticals, as we expected, that are widely distributed in surface waters going into drinking water plants, and very low concentrations are detectable, but the concentrations are very, very low.
Because the drugs show up in such tiny traces, it would take hundreds of glasses of water before someone would be exposed to even a normal dose of the drug.
They're very low in concentrations. On the other hand, we have to be concerned because there's a mixture of these drugs that we're being exposed to in drinking water, and so that's some cause for concern.
Scientists still don't know if that combination of drugs in water poses a human health risk. That research has not been done. The World Health Organization calls it a knowledge gap. In Canada, there are no national standards for pharmaceuticals in drinking water, but environment officials are working on a water quality guideline for carbamazepine, an anti-epileptic drug that shows up almost everywhere. Kelly Crow, CBC News, Toronto.
I like how they're trying to downplay that.
Yeah, there's some concern, he says.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Ron Oliver. I'm the CEO and founder of Elite Dynamic Life, and been working in health and fitness for 32 years. Today, I have a guest with me, a special guest. His name is Curtis. He owns a water company, Earth Smart Water, and he is a professional, and his job is to have your water tested to determine what are the issues that you're going to have from drinking in it, and then he figures out how to purify it so it's safe for you to drink in your home. So welcome to this episode, my brother, and
thank you.
Please tell us your thoughts that you were having while you were watching that little clip.
Well, it's horrifying, really. Like, I hope everybody watches it, because that's some real concern for everybody. No cities test for those type of things, and when we do water sampling, generally that's never being tested for. So that's a scary thing. So if the city's not testing for it, then no one knows if it's there or not, and that means you're just drinking it. So, and the good news is there's easy ways to filter that out of your water. So that's the good news. But you need to be educated on it, and you need to call a professional like myself to help you with that.
100%.
Right. So that's the good news, because there's always a way.
100%. Now, my thoughts were, as I was watching it, they're really downplaying it and making it out to sound like, this is no big deal. It looks to me like they're trying to get ahead of this and kind of downplay it and cause the Canadians not to be alarmed. Is that what your thoughts were too?
Yeah, well, they are. And then you take the fish, for example, the canary in the coal mine. Right. So they're downplaying it, but on the same token, that's pretty staggering when you got male fish turning into female fish.
No
so
kidding.
That's like a small microcosm of what's going on for us, that's a
Exactly.
pretty
And
big deal.
that's in the wild where there's, enormous amounts of water, right? What
Yeah.
about in the tap?
Well, and like
Into the body.
we spoke before, in farmlands, like in the wells that are in farmlands, they're some of the worst
Absolutely.
because these farmers that are, throughout the valley that it might be in or wherever, they're spraying pesticides and herbicides on the soil. They're spraying reclaimed sludge, what we call it, from septic fields, and manure with all these kinds of things on it and spraying it on their fields as a fertilizer. And
Absolutely.
plants are getting it, the animals are getting it, but then it's also filtering down through the dirt, which goes into the aquifer.
Yep.
And now it's in these shallow wells. And the farmers are using that to, again, spray onto the fields and consume themselves with likely minimal treatment because
100%.
no one tests for fertilizers and pesticides and this one stuff. And then they wonder why there's, higher concentrations of illness in some of these areas, but no one correlates that.
Exactly. So curious to know, being a health expert, what is your view as a water expert? And you've been doing this 12 years full time. You have a crew and you do this for a living. So I would love to hear what you're doing specifically to deal with your water where you live.
Well, I have a 525-foot well, which is fairly deep. There is deeper ones, but that's on the deep side. So my water's it has a thing called slime forming bacteria, which is not a health concern, but it's an aesthetic issue and it can wreck medias and whatnot for filters. But there's arsenic. I got a higher level of arsenic in there, hydrogen sulfide, and a high pH because of various different things in the water. So I'm forced to inject a food grade acid to bring the pH down so I can inject chlorine, and then the chlorine kills the slime forming bacteria and knocks out the hydrogen sulfide and oxidizes the arsenic. So I'm able to filter it. So after all that, the injections and the mixtures of these acid and the chlorine, it goes through a carbon filter, coconut shell carbon, which removes all the chlorine byproducts, removes various different bits of chemicals and stuff, and freshens up the water. And then after that, it goes through an arsenic filter, and which obviously removes the arsenic through an ionization process. And then after that, I basically almost deionized my water. So we add mineral to it, which is calcium and magnesium oxide. And then from there, it comes into my house, and then it goes throughout my house. And then I have the Coggin unit that I can basically have full control of the pH and everything in my water for various different uses that you know all about. And then that's what I drink. But I'm in a unique scenario on a well where I'm in full control of the quality of my water.
Yes.
Because of what I've designed, where most people just trust the government, that they get good quality drinking water, when anyone that's drinking water with chlorine in it, chlorine's an oxidant. If you poured chlorine on your skin or your clothes, it bleaches it.
100%.
That'll do that to your organs, to your skin, everything. So even in most cities, every city, I always recommend carbon just to get rid of the chlorine, just for start one. That's just step one.
Yeah.
Get rid of the chlorine. And then, obviously fluoride as well. There's microplastics, depending on your water source and the city source, microplastics is a problem. So there's filters that can take that out. And then even that, it's still, every time we filter water, it kind of almost kills the water. It's removing things, but the water doesn't like it. The water wants to flow like a river. But with the Coggin unit, with ionization, it brings it back to life. And so we do everything we can to filter it. It kind of destructures it and whatnot, but we take out the bad stuff. And the Coggin unit brings it back to life. And then now we can drink the healthiest water basically known to man, really. So
Correct. Tell me more about what you were saying earlier regarding how the cities, you know, of course they're chlorinating, they're treating the water, but they're also testing the ORP and making sure it has a certain positive charge. I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, so when we design systems for small communities and whatnot, the city does the same for cities. They use pH. They're called analyzers, and it's a computer program with probes that basically monitors the water, the pH of the water, and the ORP, which are both kind of relative to one another. So ORP is the oxidative reduction potential. So basically, if you're over 0, that's an oxidant, and if you're under 0, it's an antioxidant. So what we need to do in water treatment when we're injecting chlorine, because chlorine's an oxidant, usually if the pH is around 7-ish, your ORP needs to be about 750. And that 750 is saying that there's enough oxidants in the water, which would be the chlorine, that it's killing the bacteria that we're concerned about.
And that's a positive 750, correct?
That's positive 750. Now, it's an oxidant. Yes, it's killing bacteria. There's other ways to kill bacteria, but my Coggin unit at my house, my ORP is negative 750.
The complete opposite.
You can't even, I don't think there's fruits and vegetables that are anywhere near that.
No, there isn't.
So the city's saying, here's your healthy water that they've designed to have plus 750 ORP with fluoride and chlorine. And when chlorine is used, like the byproduct of chlorine actually oxidizing something or disinfecting it, you get THMs. And they're carcinogenic, and the government knows this, and they regulate it. So there's limits to them, but it's carcinogenic. So if I gave you a glass of water and said this one has some carcinogens in it, but they're under government levels, and here's a glass with none, which one would you drink? Like,
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. So the government, all they care about really is there bacteria in the water, and there's no arsenic or lead. But anything other than that, it just is what it is. And if they're not testing for certain things, then they don't know about it, and then that means they're not dealing with it. So it's upon the consumer to take care of their water. And that's where we're trying to educate everybody and say, hey, listen, this is where we're at. We can test the water. A lot of the tests you can get if you live in the city, they're public information.
Yes.
So you can actually get that via online. And then also, depending on your area, we may recommend further testing that the government doesn't test for.
Yeah.
And then we just custom design a system for you that would basically, fluoride removal, VOC removal, chlorine removal, and then maybe before the Coggin unit, we might have like a ceramic filter that would knock out huge portion of microplastics.
Yes, right? Exactly.
But it's all custom. It's, some people have really hard water. Some people don't. Some people have, lots of chlorine in the water. Some people don't. And then when you get into wells, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So you have every well is different. And some people draw from lakes. That's and then the lakes, there's boats in lakes. And most of these boats, from what I know, run on gas.
That's correct.
And there's oil, and that gets into the lake, and then you're drinking it, right? So no one thinks about that.
That's crazy.
People think when they put stuff in the ocean and the lakes that it disappears. Like I know divers that have found car batteries, and even in the ocean, like, the buoys, they throw, when the people come to change the batteries out in them, they just throw them in the ocean.
Wow.
You got fish farms doing things in the rivers and the oceans and lakes that if you saw what comes out of those things, you wouldn't want to swim in there, let alone drink it.
No kidding.
So water's probably the most important thing we put in our bodies.
Absolutely. It's the most important essential nutrient for every living thing.
That's right.
It's
So,
just the way it is.
well, and it's even farming. They're not treating water that they're spraying and watering our vegetables and fruit with.
No, they're not. So all
It's
our
too expensive.
vegetables, our fruits, our produce, and our animals that we eat, even the fish we're eating, is full of all these toxins too.
Yeah, and it's missing key nutrients too, like from, the soils don't have what they used to have.
100%.
So that means the food doesn't have what it used to have, whether it be vegetables, fruits, meat, any of that. So
Exactly.
it's really, really important to water's the start, and then, getting those key nutrients and everything else. And that goes into where your world is the whole other full side of health.
Yes.
But the start of it's water. It
100%.
has to be. And especially even people worry about drinking it, that you should be, but what about bathing in it? Like some people have these Brita machines because it removes the chlorine. It's like, well, that's good. I'm glad that they're thinking like that.
Better
But what
than
about
nothing.
what about the biggest organ in your body? Your skin.
Mhm.
So, go fill up a glass of water. Someone can do it. They can fill up their glass of water with their chlorinated city water, test it for chlorine, see how much is in there, and then stick your hand in there for a little bit and then take it out and see how much chlorine is left.
Yeah, none.
Go somewhere, it goes into you,
Absolutely.
right?
What's your
So,
thoughts on the water where they're drilling for oil and they're doing all that fracking?
oh, yeah. So the oil is underneath the water in the bedrock and whatnot, and they frack to try to get more oil out. And no one can clearly see down there because it's underground. But there is micro fractures that will come up and get into the aquifers. And now you're getting petroleum products, trace, and sometimes high levels. There's people in Alberta that can actually light their water on fire.
Wow.
You can go on YouTube and look at it. They have water coming out of their faucet and you can light it.
You got to be kidding. Wow.
Don't drink that water. If your water catches on fire, please do not drink it.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Right.
That's a free tip of the day from a professional, folks.
Yeah. So, but it's a real thing, and they're noticing people getting sick and stuff. And, a lot of it's hush hush because oil's big business. And,
Yeah.
apparently money's more important than anything to some of these people. So,
Yeah.
But it's up to the consumer to take the responsibility on and reach out
100%.
to a professional and research, research it yourself. It's an important thing. So the fracking thing is it's dangerous. And again, the treatment for that doesn't have to be, it's not tens of thousands of dollars either. You can get some fairly simple treatment that would be similar to like a water softener type deal. Some places can have, like even in back east, they have uranium in the water.
Wow.
Sounds terrible, but there's filters that remove uranium. There's other ones that are degasification, where people have, types of gases coming up in their water. Well, you don't want that.
Absolutely not.
So there's treatment systems for that, but everything has to be addressed in a unique manner. So wells would be the most unique, but city water, but every city's a little bit different too, right? So test your water, reach out to a professional, find out what you want, and then, start consuming the highest quality water you possibly can.
100%. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that, folks. I just want to leave it with this for you all. I've been in health and fitness 32 years. All of you who know me know this, and I've bought every filtration system, ionizer on the market. And then finally, 10 years ago, I decided to buy the equipment to test water for myself because I just wasn't satisfied. And that's when I came across Japanese technology. The Japanese, they're a very different culture than most, and they're very holistic minded. and they have a huge population for a very tiny location. So they had the water as bad as we do like 50 years ago. So they've spent a ton of money developing ways to actually purify the water, but then they also come up with the technology of ionizing the water and eliminating the free radicals causing oxidation in the body. So you do not want to be drinking water that is not completely negatively charged, so it's removing the free radicals, because free radical damage is the catalyst to all degeneration, disease, and premature aging. So you do not want to be drinking water that's going to cause oxidation. All you got to do, folks, is get a jar of whatever water you're drinking, put a couple of 3-inch nails in it that you would use to put a couple of 2x4s together. And if it makes those nails rust, that is not water you want to be drinking. It's as simple as that. And then do what Curtis is saying, look into your water source and find out what's going on in your city, or have somebody professionally test it for you. And then get a hold of the experts in your area and get your water issues solved. And then get yourself a Kangen water machine so you can have a medical grade, antioxidant rich, living, anti-aging water. Because if it's good enough for me, 32-year expert in health and fitness, and it's the only water I'll drink, and now we have a professional telling you that even though he's got a very robust, expensive system on his house, it's his most expensive one you can get, and he still puts the Kangen water machine at the end so he can have this awesome water in his body. So folks, it's time for you to wake up and realize that you're 3/4 water. So scientifically, mathematically, that means it's 75% of your problem, or it's 75% the solution. The choice is yours. It's very simple. It's not complicated, and you're worth it. So invest in your health. Thanks a lot, Curtis. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Take care.